Warning, this episode contains mild to heavy explicit spoilers. Listen at your own risk.
Reviews, discussions, and theories about films in horror, sci-fi, and genre. This is the Horror Deconstruction. Like, share, and subscribe to hear more.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is KOMP from the HorrorDeconstruction, bringing you a special episode, which is one that we actually recorded in 2011. That's a very long time ago. There was a hope and peace to the world, somewhat. And we did not know how terrible things would become after a while. But this was me and DECKARD. This was an earlier iteration of the Horror Deconstruction. I think I began the show a while before that. And this was called Genre Deconstruction, but never was released. And now this is a version that I guess you can hear with me and DECKARD talking about the fantastic film by James Cameron called Aliens, the sequel to the original Alien. Remember, this is a long time ago. This is from 2011. I don't have the same energy, I guess, because we were just starting this sort of podcasting thing. And it's very low energy, but it's still entertaining. We're kind of more contemplative of what we're talking about. And we're a little bit slow, but, we're praising the film, and we're kind of discussing what we enjoyed about the film and how it changed a lot of aspects of genre filmmaking back in the day. So give it a listen. I will pop in one or two times to correct any misinformation that's in the episode, but it seems clearly that you can't really screw up talking about aliens. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you later.
The first film we decided to go on was Aliens, which is the sequel to Alien, Ridley Scott, which is Aliens by James Cameron, which surprisingly is the first James Cameron film I've ever watched.
Right.
And what is your history with watching Aliens yourself? Like, when did you first watch it? When did you hear about it? What did you think about it at the beginning?
Well, it's funny that this is the first film that you picked to start this podcast, because it's I consider it my favorite movie, because I think the main reason is because I remember I saw this movie when it first came out in theaters in 1986.
Wow.
When I was actually 6.
Wow, yeah.
So, I don't know how I ended up going to the movie. I think my mother took me.
Spanish families, right, man? Spanish families will take their kids to see any... My family took me to see fucking RoboCop, man, when I was a kid.
That's worse than Aliens.
It is, man.
It's like pornography, bro.
The hands getting blown up. I was like, what's going on here? Alright, so go ahead. You saw it when you were 6 years old?
So, I remember my mother saying that I was like kind of begging her to take me to see it. I don't know how I was even aware of it. Maybe because through television, commercials, whatever. So and then I remember seeing it, and I really like. I don't know if it's that I love the movie, or I was just so like scarred by it.
All right.
It was like moments you have of your life in your childhood, like you always bring them back to, like, let's say a certain something that happened in your life. Like Aliens is one thing I can always remember a certain period of my life, really? Because it was like so embedded. You know what I mean? Because it affected me so badly. Not back then in a bad way, but now in a good way.
Right.
So that's how I kind of, and I ended up loving it after getting over kind of whatever the fear that I had. So once I had it on video, I recorded it, I guess, from TV or HBO or whatever. Okay. I would watch it over and over, but I could never watch the last 10 minutes. I would always watch the entire movie up to the last 10 minutes. But that's kind of like the history of it. So it's been since I can remember.
Is there a certain reason why you never watched the last 10 minutes of the film?
Well, that was the point in the movie where I ran out of the theater.
Oh, you actually ran out of the theater?
I actually ran out of the theater. My mother had to come chase me, and we left my sister watching it by herself.
Wow.
And then I stayed out there until it finished, and I was just so forget it, dude. I remember walking out of the theater. It was actually around, it used to be this old theater, almost by that little bridge where you walk to my house.
Okay, right.
There's a furniture store that has an awning, like a theater awning.
Oh wow, that used to be a theater.
That used to be a theater, and I remember seeing it there. And I used to live, the opposite way. So I remember walking out of there, and it was it must have been mid to late July, because this movie came out like July 16 or something.
Okay.
And I just remember it was like late afternoon, almost getting night, and I was just so stunned, bro. Like, I couldn't even...
It shook you.
It shook me, dude. I remember just staring at the floor. Fucking home, and then whatever. And then, so that's kind of my introduction to the movie.
So for the two people that never heard of this film, off of Wikipedia, I'm gonna read the synopsis of the story. Let me see the plot. I'm reading this off of Wikipedia for people that don't know. Although I know it by heart, I just want to make sure I don't say it fucked up.
Yeah.
So this is the plot. Ellen Ripley, survivor of the first film Alien. She is rescued and revived after drifting for 57 years in stasis, which is basically for cryo sleep.
Right.
At an interview before a panel of executives from her employer, the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, her testimony regarding the alien incident is met with extreme skepticism, and since there's no real physical evidence of the creature being surviving that destruction of the first film, she loses her license, and they think that she's kind of kooky. And she finds out that you help me now. So LV-426, that was a factor in the first film, right? Right.
That was the original planet that the first crew, which was not the alien planet.
Right. So
and now there's a colony on that planet.
Right.
Which the company that sent the first crew, they kind of said they own this colony, and it's just like they're building some sort of, I don't know what they're building, some reactors or something on that planet.
So when Ripley catches wind of this, and she's obviously upset that it's been 57 years since the incident happened with her, and she's warning all these corporate shirts that that's not a good idea to have these families up there, because. But what's happening is a little incident happens where she is now forced to confront these creatures once again by going to LV-426 with a couple of space marines.
Right.
So I think as a whole, I think that's pretty the gist of the story. And then she kind of meets one of the only survivors, which is this young girl named Newt. Right. And then chaos happens from there. And it's a film that's. Like when I first, I don't remember how I saw Aliens when I first saw it myself. Right. I don't know, because I don't think I saw it in the movie theaters. I was probably like I was like the littlest type of kid back then.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing RoboCop, but I don't even remember what year RoboCop came out. And 1987.
Yeah.
So I might have seen Aliens. I might be, because I do remember seeing, because there's a sequence. There's an android character named Bishop in the film, and he gets torn apart, and it scarred me when I saw it. I was like, what the I was like, holy shit.
That's the part I know. And I couldn't drink milk for like 6 months.
Because in the film, Bishop's blood is white, and it's milky. Right. I remember seeing that, but I don't remember, that image stuck with me so bad that I had to look away because I was so horrified by it. Because I didn't know what was going on. Like, you see blood and gore in films, but then you see this what was white stuff coming out of this guy.
It's still peculiar to me. Like, I've never seen something like that in a movie.
Yeah, it's like jarring because it's.
I don't know if it's because people have been torn apart in movies like hundreds of times.
Yeah,
but I don't know. It's just the way it's done. I don't know. It's a certain thing about the way. I think it's even the effect they use.
Yeah.
And even how it's shot, it's shot in this weird slow motion.
Yeah. And it's just great, animatronics and just great editing to make it feel so flawless. And it's just like you believe the fucking guy got torn apart, and then you just see him talking, and he has no lower half to his body, and he's speaking, and you're like, I'm like, what the fuck's going on, man? This is horrible. So not the movie, but I mean the situation. I'm looking at this. It's like just disgusting because you're expecting a human being to bleed red, and this white shit comes out, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? I mean, it's not a human character anyway, but you're like, ooh. So So I remember when I saw it, and then I think what happened was Channel 5 here in New York City, like Fox, it's a Fox affiliate, and they would always play it pretty much every second weekend. They'd always play Aliens. But of course, I was watching the heavily censored version, so it would be, horrible editing, and they cut out all the curses and change voices and shit like that. But that's how I initially used to see Aliens until I probably saw it on HBO and saw the full thing. which wasn't the full thing. It wasn't the director's cut. But it always stuck with me, this film, just because it was like there's a certain way I classify this film. Almost classifies itself by the way it calls itself. One of the characters, Hudson, he says, "Is this going to be a bug hunt?" And that pretty much almost encapsulates how this film is. It almost is a bug hunt, but the bugs are bigger than you, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And
it's kind of, well, not really, but it's kind of the first of its kind.
I would say so, yeah.
The later generation of filmmakers, because I'm sure they did a couple movies, not really space movies,
right? But
this was really the first space movie where it was like a group of people going to, attack or try to destroy, a species or something.
Mm-hmm.
You never really saw that other than this film, and I think this film has a lot of those moments where that have been used that become cliches from now on since that movie. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, of course. This is definitely a groundbreaking, trend-setting film for what it was.
Like, I don't want to jump too much forward ahead. But there's a scene later on where one of the characters, Vasquez, and she's there. Actually, the characters go through what is that called? A vent, right?
Okay.
Remember that part where they're going through the vent at the end?
Okay, right.
They're trying to get away, and one of the characters gets she gets pinned down, and another character comes save her, who they've been at odds through the whole movie.
Right.
And they end up getting like
the redemption kind of sequence.
Yeah, and it's like they kill themselves.
Right.
And that's been done after this movie.
Yeah. I don't think it's the first time that's happened, but I'm pretty sure that's the most prominent one that I remember seeing that ever happening in a film ever.
Right.
Because the
way it was shot.
The character that saves her, well, it doesn't. I think is it William Gorman?
It's Gorman. Yeah.
Gorman. So Gorman is this pretty spineless character throughout the whole film, and everybody hates. You as a viewer, you gotta hate this guy because he's kind of just. He's almost the corporate shirt, just kind of saying shit, doing it, but he doesn't do it any of himself. Earlier in the film, when they're actually getting dropped towards the planet, they ask him how many drops he's had, and he says, "Oh, I've only done 2 simulated," and stuff like that. So all this whole time, he's kind of like a sniveling nerd kind of character. He's not very good under pressure, and everybody in the film, every character in the film fits some kind of weird trope. Like they fit some kind of weird. I wouldn't want to say they're 2-dimensional because the dialogue in the film is good enough that they break from being just 2-dimensional and you like them. Because there's a certain aspect of 2-dimensional characters and characters that are written well enough, and there's a lot of characters in the movie. The film starts out with at least about 14 or 12, like a dozen characters going to this planet. I would say, 11 of them.
There.
And then they quickly get chopped down to about 5 or 6. So, but that's the thing. Like, go ahead.
What's great about it is that you don't have to. This is what's great about this film, and like just the type of film and the time that it was made, like the era, is that the 80s. That you didn't have to introduce every character.
No, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's characters we never really. They don't get screen time.
Right.
But we hear their names, and I think that has more. Sometimes that has more of an effect because we don't really need to even be introduced to these characters.
Yeah, because
when we start getting killed, we kind of like we feel something. You know what I mean?
Like you wish that they stayed on in the film because they, as many characters they are, they're almost all given their own little kind of tick and their own little personality, quirkiness.
Right.
It's like say you see, I was pissed the Sarge got killed so quick in the film because he's just like this prototypical. He's almost like he walked out of the film Predator. You know what I mean? The first Predator film because he's just. Yeah, you think he would.
That's the one guy that will survive this.
And that's definitely a thing from the director's thing. You know what I mean? That's definitely, you have the toughest one out there get killed first. It puts a net of, there's no safe, person in this film. Because he's basically the Carl Weathers guy from Predator. You know what I mean? He's a guard chomping, hardcore black dude, and he gets killed. He's pretty much one of the first guys that get killed in the film.
Yeah.
And the thing that I like about that is because it puts an amount of tension because this guy was leading these Marines, and we were jumping far ahead. But that's a great story twist that this guy's gone, and now you have all these you have basically the troop or these is a chicken without its head. You know what I mean? They don't have anybody to lead them, and of course all that leading ends up coming into it's split between Hicks and Ripley. Although it's almost like Gorman is supposed to be the guy that's leading them, but he's kind of like a
He takes the back seat because he knows that he screwed up.
Yeah. Plus, they made him so spineless that the leads are going to become Hicks and Ripley. So anyway, going back to how this film is made, there's a certain style of film. It's a filmmaking technique that I think Cameron, that I recognize in his films, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, but his films are very clinical and very. Just the way it's filmed, they're just clinical. It's almost like a science. It's obviously a science fiction film, but it's almost scientific the way that he has everything precisely done. Like it's the worlds in his films are very reality based, if I can say that. You know what I mean? You feel like you can exist in these worlds because there's nothing so over the top and I don't want to say he's not stylized as a director, because obviously there's style in what he's doing. But there's something about it that it feels like, just as like I would say there's more surrealism in The Untouchables more than in Aliens. Do you know what I mean? Like there's these stylish breaks in there, but that's two different kind of directing styles. But it's almost like if you take that film, which is a stylized version of Chicago. And well, it was right. I think unless I'm fucking up, but it's like that actually exists. And with Aliens, I can see myself living in this, in this future with these space stations and all this shit going on. And that's what I think. What Cameron does is that he has everything down to a T. It's like okay, it's just these. And the thing I think Cameron gets shit for a lot is that supposedly, there's these people that always say, all his protagonists are don't have any personality or unlikable, and I can say I can't say that but it depends on the actor that's in the film. You know what I mean? Because I think in Titanic, obviously they had enough great actors, and he's smart enough to pick up DiCaprio and Winslet. And obviously in True Lies, Schwarzenegger walks in with his whole thing, so you kind of he's already Schwarzenegger. Yeah. And the only film I can kind of see that is maybe Avatar, where the main character is kind of like, hey, whatever. Once he's in his Avatar body, he's cool, whatever. But do you ever get that sense from his films, like his protagonists are not somebody that really you can relate to? No,
I mean, not any of his early work. You know what I mean?
You could relate to them, or not?
I agree with you with Avatar, but the thing about his films before Avatar, I think, was they were always felt like they had human emotion to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like no matter what, like if it was like a Terminator film, you know what I mean? It was still
right.
The human emotion was the main thing. That's what he concentrated on. Even though effects-filled movie, but he always had that
core.
Emotional core. Like look at the Abyss. Like the Abyss is complete. It's like it's based in reality, but it has this science fiction fantasy element. When the underwater aliens come, you know what I mean? It's like, but it's basically a love story.
Okay.
To really break it down, you know what I mean? So I think all his protagonists have, they have heart. You know what I mean? So I definitely don't agree with that. I agree with you about his style. About it. It almost doesn't have a style.
Right.
It's not, but that's the style in itself. You know what I mean? It's
definitely.
It's realism. It's realism. He puts you in there, and I think that's what makes me, when I first saw it, made me uncomfortable at first, is because I felt like part of this world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't some fantastical Star Wars. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, I'm never gonna be part of that.
Right.
But definitely, and I think another thing that I give credit to Cameron for is he knows his limitations. You know what I mean?
Okay.
He knows what to use and what not to use, and I think he even said that he tried to copy a lot of what Ridley Scott did in the first film. So it can be more, so it can make sense. So it can have a continuation. So you could see like, all right, the first film sort of matches with the second film. It's in that same world. You know what I mean? He also admitted that he doesn't have that artistic eye like Scott behind the camera.
Okay. Because he's an illustrator and he's done prop work.
He's an artist himself. But I mean, filming wise, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ridley Scott definitely has a greater eye, when it comes to that.
Right.
And he even said like he had to create his own style, but using Ridley Scott's, trying to use his style as well. As you can tell, the beginning of the movie has a lot of, when they introduce the ship, there's a lot of tracking shots going through the ship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's, if you look at Alien, that's how it started too.
So
he's trying to keep it consistent. You know what I mean?
I have a confession. I still haven't seen Alien.
Oh, you gotta see that, bro.
Maybe one of the next episodes.
Future Comp signing in. I did see Alien, and we did review that episode a while ago, so you can see that in the archives.
Yeah, that could be the next one.
But yeah, so that's... I see what you say with, because I mean, when I just opening it up, when it has these long, silent... Well, it's not silent, there's music, there's a score playing, but just these vast shots of Ripley's ship, floating in the abyss. It's like very...
It's creepy.
Yeah, it's creepy. It's unnerving, because, I mean, it sets the tone right there. And... So what happens is we usually start from like the beginning of the film. So Ripley wakes up out of stasis, and I guess there's a salvaging crew that comes to go. They thought, I guess they're going to salvage. They're going to sell all the, I guess, break the ship apart and sell it or something. And then it comes back to Weyland-Yutani, where they were in the first film, I guess. And
you basically just heard about them.
Okay, so this big corporation that they were working, and so she gets touched down back down to Earth, and she finds out from Paul Reiser of all people. I don't know why. When I saw the film, I don't think Mad About You was on, so obviously I didn't know, but I knew him from like comedy or something,
He was a comic.
So it was bizarre to see Paul Reiser in this film. I was like, what the fuck's Paul Reiser? What's he? He's the only one for me that stuck out because it was a comedian, and he's like playing. I mean, he was good in the film though. He plays
great, dude.
Comedians play really good assholes in films.
I think because he was a big one.
He was a huge asshole in the film, and in the film he has that kind of worminess about him, but like kind of like Gorman. But you could tell there's something more reptilian about his character. He's just like a fucking but he's good. He's really good in the film. I'm surprised I didn't see him in more dramatic films after this. You know what I mean? Maybe he is, but I just never saw it. So he's telling Ripley, and this is what's so subtle at the beginning, because this sequence between these two characters after she wakes up, it's a dream sequence, but it's not filmed with any weird, lens or anything like that to make it come off as a dream sequence. And he's letting her know that she's been in stasis for about 57 years. So this is a whole fucking lifetime passed by.
Which is a great, it's a great writing idea, man. I mean,
it is.
I think it's one of the smartest things in the.
That's a great way to fast forward. Yeah, and I love that idea. That's almost like, and I'm sure it's been used in science fiction before. Obviously, that whole idea of freezing yourself and then going to the future has been used a lot. But this is the first time I've ever seen it in a film myself when I was a kid. And I just love that idea. It's like a forever youth, so the character can kind of go on to further adventures and whatever.
But what's great is that she kind of just like her life is really destroyed. Like,
yeah, pretty much.
Has nothing. So
that's a whole generation gone. You know what I mean?
It's a great, definitely a great story point. That, I mean, to start off the film like that, it's a great thing. You know what I mean?
It's a good way to wipe the slate clean,
right,
of the first film. So
exactly.
So then we're treated to a sequence where she's, it turns out that she has one of those creatures in her chest. First film, like a chest burster.
Right.
And before anything horrifically gory happens, which is even more disturbing, because I remember seeing this and it really blew my mind when you see her skin, her abdomen stretch out because you see a little monster's head coming through.
Yeah.
And you see the whole cat freaking out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Man, it freaked me out bad, man. It freaked me out kind of like I think The Fly. The Fly had a birthing sequence in it, and I was like, The Fly remake with with Jeff Goldblum, and that's like a whole like body horror kind of thing. There's a whole subgenre called body horror, like films like Existence and stuff like that, like just weird, Itchy the Killer, stuff like that. And it's very unsettling, and then it cuts back to reality, and The only thing that bugged me was like, oh wait, how does she know she was asleep for 57 years? But then I realized they probably told her this before she went to sleep.
Yeah. So it's probably like a recurring dream.
Right, it's a recurring thing. It's just like, I'm sure if you found out that news, you'd be sleeping and thinking about it the second you went to go to sleep. Right. So, I mean, it's a very interesting way of handling the story. It's a very, very intelligent way of handling the story to kind of sequelize it, but putting it in a new vein. So how do you... If you had to pick one genre of this film, what would it be? Would it be science fiction or horror?
I think it would be more science fiction because...
And is it because of the aliens or the tech? Or what?
I think it's the more the tech. I think just the fact that they're traveling, in space, and then they're landing on this planet, and just like the whole, all their weapons, and I would just consider it more.
Yeah, I would say the tech too is what yeah. Because generally horror, and plus it's
I don't
since it is also alien creatures, because horror usually bends towards supernatural creatures, and this isn't like a supernatural film at all. But I would definitely say it definitely has tinges of horror in it. There's no question about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it uses the shadows and these unearthly creatures destroying human beings. But it's like, what would you consider the first one? Was the first one a science fiction or a horror film?
I consider the first one a horror film
because it's the stylization of it, right?
It's the way it's shot, because it's almost like it doesn't even have to take place in space, like, because the whole film is in the one ship, you know what I mean? And right. Even though we do see the outside world and space, and they land on a planet, it's more like haunted house kind of thing.
I got you, because it's more confined, right?
It's more confined, and just the creature itself, the way it's shown very... You don't see the creature at all, really, in the
it's
first
very
one.
limited, right?
So...
And in this, it's handled in such a different way. It's... I think, for me, this is like... there's a certain way when I look at a film, like... When it's a band of humans that go against like these kind of creatures, I tend to look at it. I give it the, and it doesn't have to have zombies in it, but I look at it as almost like a zombie film, because it's people getting picked off left and right while these hordes of creatures attack them.
Right.
That's how I think. I thought of that when I saw this film called Demon Knight a while back, because I was like, wow, Demon, and I like Demon Knight. I was like, oh, this is a fun movie. It was just a fun movie, but it kind of had all the tropes, like a band of mismatched characters.
There's one scene in there where
Demon Knight?
They blow themselves up, just like aliens.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Yeah, exactly.
That's perfect example.
Yeah. The weird thing about this film is that Ripley is, kind of she's lost now in her life. She got her pilot's license stripped, and now she's doing regular grunt work with one of the best, I guess, aspects of foreshadowing. Is her using that loader. The loader in the film is this big giant, and this definitely has to... Cameron must have been watching some Japanese anime, because these are straight up out of Japanese cartoons. These giant loading dock suits, and the effect still works. I mean, everything in the film, nothing looks dated. Well, except for the computers, nothing really looks dated in this film. Like it ages well because it's shot so well, and it's But the loading suits are amazing. If you can explain what they look like.
It's basically like a human skeleton.
Exoskeleton, right?
Exoskeleton.
They're about 8 feet tall.
Yeah, it's probably about, I don't know, what would you say, 12, 15?
Yeah, you're right. Because the person inside of it. Go ahead.
And then it's like completely metal. It's like a loader. It's called the power loader, but it's like it's the yellow color. It's like that yellow
warning kind of slabs that you see at
which is perfect. You know what I mean?
And they have these giant claws that are used to pick up giant crates and stuff like that.
Right, exactly, and load them onto the ship, or if it's missiles or something, and it's all controlled by the person inside.
Right, they sit in it and almost control it like a video game, some kind of something you'd see out of a cartoon. But the way that it's foreshadowed in this is it's subtle. Although obviously it's clearly when I first watched it, I didn't expect it to be in the film anymore. I just thought, wow, this is pretty cool, looking kind of device in the film, because any other like director would have been like, you see I bet you'd see any other director would have had the main character look at this machine Right. And the main character would be like, boy, you know, who knows when I'll need to use that, and then they'll fucking zoom on the suit, something really horribly stupid like that. But this doesn't do it. She actually uses it to do something, and it has a function in being there. It's not like some fucking plasma cannon that just shows up. You know what I mean?
There's a function.
Yeah, there's a difference between subtle, you know, foreshadowing and just overt horrible foreshadowing. So anyway, so they show her working on the suit. They mention the suit first, and what happens is, if you want to go into what happens in the colony itself.
Well, her and the Marines, they arrive.
Oh, I meant before that stuff. So I'm talking about
before that. Oh,
yeah,
you're
deleted
talking
scene
about,
stuff.
Special edition stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Well, actually, there's a scene that from the special edition before she even gets to the colony, where Burke, Paul Reiser's character, tells her about her daughter.
Yeah, I just saw that too.
And that her daughter actually died.
66 years old.
It was like in her 60s. So that kind of, you know, gives it more weight. And
yeah, seriously, I never saw that scene until when, you know, and I was like, wow, this is pretty deep, this sequence.
Right. Because it
really chopped the shit out of that movie.
It gives it more weight with her and Newt, because now she's kind of, you know what I mean? She's looking for to save her. Like
now that gives it reason, like a lot more. I mean, instead of, and the thing what they did well, not to jump ahead of time, they didn't make Newt wasn't annoying,
right?
Because, you know, easily they can make a little kid character and they're there for whatever reason to be cute, and you know you feel scared for them,
right?
But Newt serves well in the film, so.
Right, she's sort of quiet and keeping to herself.
Yeah,
you know,
she becomes a feral kind of child, like feral,
right.
This is whatever. But okay, so she's being told about her daughter passing away.
She's about her daughter, and at this point, like you said, they took away her license. She's being investigated for blowing up the first ship,
right,
from the first film. So they're trying to find, you know, her reasoning.
And there's just great little touches though when like when she's getting the board review, and they're showing, you know, all the crew members from the first film dead. You know what I mean? And just show that, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Because I was like, and this is me saying this when I first saw it. I never saw the first one, so I'm watching them speak about these other characters, and I thought that was really fucking cool. That it was very streamlined. It was very like, okay, you can watch the sequel, and they didn't do dumb shit like show scenes from the first movie in this one, because I fucking hate that.
Me too.
It's almost to me like in dream sequences in film when the main character is in third person. It drives me nuts. I don't know why. That's just me. But I mean, on certain types of film, like when you see a character asleep and then you see him walking around in his own dream, I understand that's the viewer watching the character,
right? But
if it's a main character and it's very, you know,
it's a fine line.
Yeah, between stylization and just being lazy with it. When she's trying to convince these suits that the incidents in the first film happened, and they're just kind of like, no. Paula Poundstone is there and Bill O'Reilly is there, and but they just don't believe her, and they're like, yeah, okay, lie. In reality, if they didn't believe her, they would have had the bitch locked up. Like, but she almost is kind of locked up because they're floating in space, so there's not really any place she can go.
Yeah, and then one thing I also want to bring up is just the tone in the beginning of the film. It's very quiet and subtle. And
yeah.
I really like that about this film. It just makes it feel more real. Like, you just hear the thrumming of the ship, like in just scenes of just like Ripley just sitting alone in her like little cubicle kind of apartment thing.
Yeah,
she's just like smoking, and it's like that sort of stuff is like just sets up the movie. You know what I mean? To make it believable.
Right.
I just love it. I just love that kind of that tone rather than just being super fast cut and having music on every scene and
yeah. Because it's the perfect tone for the film because it gives it this whole cold kind of clinical aspect to it. It's very straightforward. It's not anything that's like, oh, I'm expecting this because the music is leading me to it.
Exactly.
The music the music in this film is used to heighten the sequence, not to lead you to something. It's not violins playing to make you cry. It's there to, match your heartbeat whenever the Queen Alien comes out, shit like that.
Right.
So from then on,
and it cuts to. So if we're going into like the special edition,
yeah, sure.
There, once she gets she gets like ripped apart by the whole the suits and stuff. It cuts to a sequence that takes us to the colony. I believe it's like it must be present, right?
Yeah.
It must be present. And we actually see the colony and the people, when they were still alive,
doing whatever they're doing. It's very vague what they're doing. I guess they're colonizing and making it large because I think it was only how many families, like 60 or something like that.
Yeah, 60 families.
So I think on the sign it said the population of 150 people.
Right.
And so what they're doing is terraforming it.
Right.
So it's still basically, the very beginning of colonizing a planet.
Exactly.
So these first groups of family are there to lay down the tracks, so to speak.
Right.
And what happens is we see this family of 4 and one of their terraform riders. I don't even know what you would call that thing. Just this vehicle driving around in the wasteland. Well, it's not really a wasteland. It's more like what would you call it, a wasteland, or just the dunes or something like that? It's a dark planet because there's no sun around it, I assume. And
there's no sun, and then it's
I don't know whether because it's nighttime or because
I don't think
it's nighttime. I think it's just a dark planet, right?
Yeah, it's a dark planet because in the first film the sun comes up but it stays dark.
Yeah, how the hell are they gonna?
I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird thing. But
it's a weird thing to have no vegetation. I mean, how you gonna have vegetation? But that's a whole other issue.
It's very violent and it's like just the climate is violent.
It's basically the pitch black planet almost. If anybody's who's seen Pitch Black, it's just
it's very rocky.
It's rocky and it's
so
So the family of 4
following this vehicle with the family. It ends up being Newt's family.
Say who Newt is?
Newt is she's the little girl that
10 years old or something, right?
What happened?
She's about 10 years old, right? 12
maybe? Probably 10 or 12. And she's like the sole survivor of that whole colony later on in the film.
Right.
Because this scene was actually cut out from the theatrical cut, so and I don't necessarily love this scene. Like, I don't think it's
necessary.
I prefer the special edition to the theatrical for the scenes that come later on.
Right.
But this scene actually could work. The movie could work without it.
Yeah, I thought so too. Because I mean, it's almost like when I first.
Cameron thought. I mean, that's why he cut it out. He was just like, he tried to do again something like that, like Ridley Scott would have done. It's the same spaceship that the first crew went into, that weird alien, like it looks like almost like a weird banana type thing. They go in. That's the same one that the first crew went in. So he kind of tried to replicate that feeling into him, but he didn't even like it. He thought he didn't really do a good job of it.
Yeah, that's what I say was the only misstep in this. Because right now we're kind of reviewing the special edition. I only get to see half. I've seen the regular film, but I've also seen half of the special edition, which has all these deleted scenes. And yeah, you're right. Because I mean, going into the film, you know what the film is going to be about. It's about aliens. But Cameron is doing it in a way that's so well that if this sequence is not in the film, it works because it's leading you to a revelation. But it's weird because your brain already knows this is gonna happen. So, but it kind of feels like with this sequence in there, it kind of shoots its load a little too early.
Yeah, it's more of a surprise when they arrive on the planet.
Right, because when I first saw that, and then when you actually see the first contact with them, it really is when they go into the science lab. You know what I mean? When they see that shit and like, what's all this crap about?
Just seeing everything deserted.
Right. That's far creepier than actually seeing there were people there at the beginning.
And the surprise of a little girl being still alive.
Right. That's way more, because when I first saw the film, all I knew was that's how Newt came out in the beginning. So in this version, Newt was with her family, and I don't know what they're looking for. I guess
they're just investigating.
They must have just thought they saw like a salvageable ship, because what they find.
They came upon the ship. They hadn't seen it before. They want to know what's in it, whatever. But again,
smart ass father walks.
Yeah.
Out.
Again, it just.
I think we hit pay dirt. I was like, okay, asshole. That's the end of you.
Yeah.
And the shot that I think the one thing that they could have cut out of that is the face hugger being on his face in that part. The scene could have worked if they just cut out that face hugging part, because it's already like, oh, okay, here we go. Now we know what we're dealing with.
Right. I just don't like it. I just feel like the movie is just more powerful without it. I mean, I just feel like it's more surprise. So whatever. So then, the scene ends with Newt's father. Both of the parents go into the thing. They leave the kids behind, and then the mother comes out. and Newt's father has the face hugger wrapped around him, right? And then it kind of cuts from there, and then it goes into where the theatrical continued. Ripley kind of pondering in her room, whatever, and then
she wakes up.
Yeah.
Does she wake up from another nightmare or no?
No, not yet.
Right? Okay, right.
Burke comes in with
Gorman.
Gorman, which is he's the I guess
spineless guy
or captain of the lieutenant or whatever.
I think it was lieutenant, right?
I don't know what he is of the Marines. Go in there and they tell her they let her know that there's that contact has been severed from the colony, and they're gonna go.
And you're not really given any time frame of what happens.
They don't really give it a time frame.
It's kind of like the next scene automatically. There's no. Right. So you can't think like shit just happened within half an hour. You gotta assume stuff. Did Ripley cut her hair too or something? I'm not sure, but
I don't think she might have.
Because I think that's supposed to show the passage of time because her hair is a bit shorter from the opening of the film. So maybe there is some sort of passage of time, but there's really no.
Because there has to be because later on we find out that Burke was the one who told them to go there.
Yeah, right.
So after she told her story, he's the one that calls that family and tells them go to that ship.
Oh, I see.
So that's kind of there is kind of maybe like a week passage of time or something like that. But anyway.
So these two come to her room and they're trying to convince her to be an advisor.
Right.
Go ahead, please.
To sort of go back and because they don't know what they're dealing with really.
Right. You know? And they need somebody who actually dealt with this before to help them out. Let me play a little bit of that scene.
Go back out there? Forget it. It's not my problem.
Can I finish?
No. There's no way.
Ripley, you wouldn't be going in with the troops. I can guarantee your safety.
These colonial marines are very tough hombres. They're packing state-of-the-art firepower. There's nothing they can't handle.
Lieutenant, am I right? That's true. We've been trained to deal with situations like this.
Then you don't need me. I'm not a soldier.
So, it's funny, does Gorman look like the guy from Prison Break to you?
A little bit.
It's like looking at us like, this guy looks like fucking the guy from Prison Break. But,
aged.
So what they unsuccessfully try to convince her to come and to go with them, and what she ends up, you see the next shot, she wakes up from a nightmare, night terror, right? And she decides she changes her mind for whatever reason. I guess she feels like.
Well, it's actually a very smart way to do it. He kind of does it as something psychologically. You know, she's really.
Oh, she's still shattered a bit from the whole.
She's shattered. She really isn't living any sort of life because she's constantly, having these dreams that are, haunting her. So this is like her way of getting rid of the dream. Is to face her fear, basically.
Yeah.
So I think it's perfect. It's the more realistic way to go.
And I don't know how her character's arc was in the first film. But in this one, she's kind of already, she's apprehensive, but you can still see a flicker of she has a maternal thing, and I think it's also because of the daughter stuff, but very maternal, kind of protective over everybody because she saw this thing and she doesn't want this shit to happen to anybody else.
Exactly.
So that's the feeling I get with her character. She's not some bravo, macho male character. It's more of a sense of protecting others and, kind of being the alpha male of the film, and there's plenty of alpha males in the film.
Right.
But I think that's a very endearing aspect to her character.
Definitely.
So and a nice little touch that I like about the film with when she wakes up from the night terror and she calls up what the hell's Paul Reiser's character? Burke. She calls him up, and it's very small, but Burke is she calls him on a video phone. And Burke is waking up in the middle of the night, and you see him looking back at somebody else's in the room, but they never show who's looking and who's in the room. So it's like fuck, it's just a small touch like that. It's realistic in a way that this guy has his own life, and whoever else is in the room with him is just.
Right.
I just like that little aspect of it because it felt like these are characters. The way that I look at this film, it almost is stylized in a comic book way, not as in panel wise. But just how characters move from A to B, they're just almost I would say not an American comic book, but European comic book.
Right.
If you ever look at European comic books, it's almost the same way as, say, The Fifth Element.
Okay.
You see how The Fifth Element, that's a very stylized film, but visually, not in sweeps or pans or anything like that.
Just framed.
Right, it's just framed. It's almost like Star Wars. You know how that's framed? They're not doing any. weirdo close-ups or anything like that, or like, you know, they do that in the prequels, not the original ones.
Right.
And there's just a very certain style of the way this film is that these characters exist in this universe, and it's shot like almost like a 1940s film, but with these kind of over-the-top landscapes and, you know, machines and shit like that. So I would definitely say this fits like a European kind of comic book, you know, pastiche of how visually it moves, because it's telling a story and it's letting the story be the visual aspect of the film, as opposed to, you know, using pretty editing techniques. And I love crazy editing techniques, but for this type of film it works because it's cold hard sci-fi horror. You know what I mean? So what aspect I didn't get right now is, how did Weyland Yutani, how do they get a hold of these? I would assume this is their own Marines, or the Marines are like are these, because these guys aren't like in Avatar, the Marines in that film I think were hired guys. Those are just hired.
Yeah, I think these are the same kind of guys.
You think so? You think they were just, because they call them Marines in the film, they say they're Marines, and the guy has badges and everything, so I mean,
they're kind of like
Blackwater or something like that. You know Blackwater, right?
You know what?
Do you know what Blackwater is?
No.
Blackwater, you should look this up. Blackwater is this actually troop of like Marine trained guys that are hired by corporations, like, and they send them out to Iraq, you know, just to make sure that, you know, whatever these companies are safe to get their oil. And these are dudes with their own helicopters, all their own fucking weaponry.
That's exactly what it is.
So yeah, so I was just kind of thrown off that they call them Marines. So I didn't know how, you know, how the army works in the future. In this future. They're probably all really like ex-Marines or whatever.
Not to the Marine Corps, you know what I mean? But
yeah, because those guys are usually called like freelancer life, or they're called, you know, not special ops. So special ops is an actual thing. But that's why I didn't understand how the army or the military worked in this kind of future. So I mean, if they were like funded by whoever, that didn't really
I never really saw any like any of the logos.
Yeah, the only one that has a logo is the Sarge, because he has a hat, a very funny looking hat with the label on it half sticking off. That's it, but you don't really see anything. He has dog tags. Everybody basically has dog tags. So we're introduced. These people also were kind of some kind of cryo sleep. I don't know how many months it took for them to get to that other planet, to LV 426.
Right.
How long it took them? I would assume it took them a while, because it's not like light speed or something, you know. So
exactly.
They wake up from cryo sleep, and you want to kind of introduce to what kind of characters are in the film, like who's introduced. I'll name them off. So we got we see the things open up. We see the cryostasis places open up, and we have Hicks. So you can say who Hicks is. Hicks
is a corporal. He's sort of like the quiet hero kind of type guy.
Yeah. And it's funny because he's like the guy who you see him, the way he looks physically. He was a guy obviously from Terminator 1.
Right.
Played by Michael Biehn, and he I think he almost falls into the female role, traditional female role, towards the end of the film, because he has to be protected.
Hold on, future comp here. When I meant traditional female role, I meant the way that women were portrayed in 80s and 70s and 60s and 50s and 40s and even up to early 2000s films as the sort of damsel in distress, and this film had changed that trope. That's what I meant.
But there's Bishop, who, you know, we don't find out until a certain sequence that he's an android, and I guess there was issues with an android in the first film. There's my favorite character in the film is Hudson, who's also he's a spineless kind of character as well. Like, he's not spineless, he's chicken shit, but he's more like saving his own kind of ass character.
Right. Later on, he is.
Yeah, he there's a lot of redemption in the film. Like, a lot of characters redeem themselves in the film. There's Vasquez. You want to explain who she is?
It's like the typical
Cameron female character.
Cameron, hardcore, hard ass Latina.
Yeah, she has my favorite line in the film.
You know, which again is a very original kind of thing to do.
Yeah, I never saw any like hardcore Latina characters.
You know what I mean? Like, to have a character like her, which would usually be played by a guy. And she's sort of like the toughest person there. You know what I mean?
Right. She is. She's like the super badass. That's the thing with Cameron. Cameron likes really strong women in his films, like super strong. Like, I think that's a fetish of him. Kind of like Tarantino has feet in his movies.
Right.
She's there. Which one is Apone? Apone is
he's a sergeant.
Right, Apone. Okay. Oh, right. Sergeant Al Apone. Because I already was mixing up with Drake.
And Drake is like
Drake is this vanilla kind of character. He's just there to I think fill boots, but you see him that he has some sort of relationship with Vasquez.
Right, they're like
it's easily the worst line in the film that he delivers.
Which one?
He's like, let me see if I can go. But you can explain him and Vasquez is kind of
like sort of this kind of duo. And they even have the same kind of weapon. They share the same kind of weapon, and they're like. You can tell.
I would assume that they had some kind of sexual relationship, but you never know with these.
You never know.
Really.
There's something about them that it's almost weird. It's a weird sort of relationship.
Dynamic. So that's that character. Who we have generic dude. Who's that? That was is that Frost?
Frost.
Yeah, but at least they give him some lines. They gave him funny
lines. Some lines, which is cool because he got early as well.
But every time I see the film, I forget that he's almost below the other guy.
Right, and I think that's pretty.
Then we have like the flight people. So
which we don't.
Dietrich and Spunkmeyer, I believe.
Meyer.
So those are the two flying people, and
right.
So
and then who else do we got? I think it's pretty much the main.
Well, we had two other characters. Well, the one whose name... there's one character called Tim Crow, but these are characters that are not even, they don't even bother watching them.
Crow, and then there's this other character called
Wierzbowski. That's the only one, the only name that stuck with me whenever I saw the film. It's like, Wierzbowski! Wierzbowski!
Who is that?
I know, because I was like, I don't remember any Wierzbowski in the film.
But that's what I love about it. Is like you don't even need to introduce these characters.
Yeah, so once they say that their names are at least said,
That's what I mean.
So that leads to... Go ahead.
They say we get introduced to Bishop.
Right. Through a lunching, eating sequence.
Right. Another great thing that Cameron did is that he took that element from the first one that worked. He brought that back.
He rearranges it just like how he rearranges Terminator 1 with Terminator 2. He turns the bad robot good, and then there's another bad robot there.
Right.
Just like this one, there's a bad... I'd assume that there was a bad android in the first one, and now there's a good android. Well, you're lead to believe he's good so far.
Well, that's exactly because it builds tension throughout the whole entire film. Because you think he's going to turn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the thing that Cameron said is that the actor, what's his name? Lance Henriksen?
Uh-huh.
That he played it completely straight. But it seems when you first see the movie that he's sort of evil, but he's just playing it straight. And
I think that has to do a lot with Henriksen's face, because he has a very rugged face.
Yeah, exactly. And he was like, it worked for the movie because at the end he does come through, you know what I mean, and he does help them.
So the way we're introduced to Bishop really is that they're in this mess hall and they're all eating, and Hudson, who is Bill Paxton, he asks Henriksen. He asks Bishop to do his knife trick, and like, what's going on? So Bishop puts his hand on the table, and he's about to do a little. I forget what the name of that it's called, but it's hitting the spaces between your fingers with a blade on the just so you don't cut yourself. It's supposed to be impressive. But one of the other Marines puts Hudson's hand on the table as well, and then Bishop puts his hands on top of him, and he decides to do the game. And it's like one of the funniest sound effects ever, because it's like the way Paxton plays Hudson, it's over the top, but it's funny and it's endearing in a way because he's kind of a jackass character in the film.
Right.
But that was a knife scene where he effortlessly blades each. He doesn't hit any fingers and he just does it. It's like the funniest scene. And Henriksen does it really well. It's just Henriksen is really good as this character because he's there's humanity. He's basically an android, but you still see the humanity behind his character. So they didn't fully play him. Like I don't know how the android was in the first film was, because this does take place nearly 60 years after the first film. So I would assume that they perfected the technique of making him really human. Mm-hmm. So because any other shitty movie would be like, yes, I am here to it'd be like Data from Star Trek. You know what I mean? Just a standing robot, a machine, a computer talking to you. So Ripley sees that he actually injures him. Well, however a fucking android could injure him, cuts his finger off. And I think it's a very telling sequence. So right there, you can already see Burke's character is kind of an asshole, right?
Right.
Just the way he handled that sequence, like, oh, I forgot to mention. You could just be like, what? Like, he seems kind of a dick.
Like, by the way, one of the fucking worst things in your life.
Yeah, we brought it here to remind you.
Right. But he definitely, that's a great scene just to, again, build tension throughout the whole movie, because now you know that Ripley, even if you haven't even seen it, it kind of explains it very quickly. You kind of get the idea that something happened.
Yeah, because there's no other mention of what the android does in the film besides what she says in that scene.
Right, and just her performance kind of tells it right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's really neat. So then, throughout the whole movie, there's this tension between her and Bishop, which again builds upon all the other tension in the movie. You know what I mean? So I think Cameron's like, in the writing of the script, he's like planting all these kind of ideas that are just keep the movie interesting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, he's definitely one of my favorite characters, though.
Bishop?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just something cool about him.
Yeah.
And I like how, it's a weird stylistic thing, but I like how the film's not really dated. The only thing that really dates the film is, like, probably Ripley's haircut. That's about it.
Right.
Like, because since everything's so uniform in the future, and all these Marines have their buzz-cut haircuts, maybe, who's that guy? Vasquez's friend. He has these beads hanging off his hat that look pretty 80s. So, but on that, so they make their drop off to the planet, and you want to explain what happens after
that? So then they finally get to the planet, and when they arrive, they realize that it's abandoned.
Yeah,
and it's actually almost just the interiors are almost like destroyed and barricaded.
Yeah.
So it's like a battle. They just missed the battle.
Yeah, they just missed something that totally. It's like coming to a massacre, but there's no bodies and there's no blood. It's like something just happened here, but which leaves it even creepier. And I gotta say, before that, when they show Vasquez and her partner with their guns, like I fucking love the gun tech in this film.
Yeah.
I've never seen that in any other film. Like the only time I've seen that wasting is when I've worked on movies and they actually just use that for cameras. They have these.
That's actually what it was.
That's what it was, right? Oh man, it's because I've never seen that. When I was watching this, why don't they use this in real life in the art? Although probably in real life would probably be horrible to use that. Because
it would be because they'd probably get
it's
shot
very
first.
limiting, right? You get shot really quick with that. But for the film, it looks amazing because it's this whole it's basically a camera rig on their waist, but they put a gun there. These giant fucking machine guns or whatever.
And the
pulse rifles, I think they're called.
Rifles,
but they're not shooting. Are they shooting? They're shooting what though? They're shooting bullets, right? So
they're shooting bullets, yeah.
So pulse rifles shoot pulses. I have no idea about that shit.
They're shooting. He even says it in the movie. Tip caseless something bullets. But that's another thing that stood out for me. Even when I first watched the movie as a kid, was their weapons.
Yeah, the weapons are fucking amazing.
Just the pulse rifle itself. Like always wanted to get my hands on one.
And just the way they held their guns too, because the guns are held at a 20-degree angle. Like the guns are aimed down. Like it's just. It's like you can see they have weight behind it, but since they have these support devices, they can lift these heavy guns. But it's almost like the guns almost look like swords in a way. Because I think that's I think it's also maybe a phallic symbol kind of thing. These giant fucking swords that are hanging off their sides, but instead of slashing at people, they pick it up and blast shit away.
Right.
But I mean, it's visually, it's so fucking awesome. Like, I mean, this is some other territory because you've never seen weapons like this in a film before.
And another thing too is that the sound that they make.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's so distinct. Like,
yeah.
Never heard that sound before. It's like it just makes it sound like it's from another world, like futuristic. Like you never heard of this before. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So definitely the tech in this film, the gun tech and everything, are fucking off the charts. Like A+. I mean, it's shit. When you see stuff in a film, and recently the only other film where I've seen tech look really awesome was District 9. You know what I mean? Like that kind of tech when I saw that. Although that's tech that's been used before, but not in film.
Aliens.
Right. You know, it's all alien shit.
Exactly.
Everything that's in District 9 was used in Aliens already.
Right.
But it's still like, wow, this tech is just so fucking sick. Man. It's cool. It's like
it's old school, but it's futuristic.
Right.
Because everything looks just like used. You know what I mean?
And it's not like the gun was floating over their arm like with CG like they do now. Like the gun will just be floating in the air and bullshit like that.
Right.
Because basically everything in District 9 was CG. It was all phony.
Right.
But in this, like you could see the actors held it and they actually had some weight to it, and they had to react to that kind of this prop in their hands.
Right.
And they they trained them well enough as actors to hold these weapons and look like pros holding it. So I mean that's the way. I know we're going off this whole tangent with the weapons, but the weaponry is fucking amazing. The little that little tank car that they have that I didn't even know how those motherfuckers looked. I guess there was a little camera, right, that showed them where they were. But that was an awesome little fucking thing that they have there.
The tank thing is it's called the APC.
APC?
APC, yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking awesome too, man.
It's one of the best.
Their ships look awesome. That ship that they're driving around, flying around is amazing. Yeah. Everything's cool. Every tech issue in this film is amazing. It feels like this is like the sister of like how Blade Runner, like the same kind of universe, kind of like how that kind of weird
could be
past future kind of thing going on. Although I think this takes place like if this and Blade Runner are in the same universe, this takes place like after that maybe. I assume.
Probably does, because even Ridley Scott said the first Alien could have took place in the same world as Blade Runner. He was like, if that crew had docked back to their home planet, it would have been the world of Blade Runner. You know what I mean? So
that would be awesome.
It's definitely in that year. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Years into the future.
Okay, so
they
these
get
people
back. They get to the colony, right? And it's deserted, and they see like acid holes in the floor, and they get kind of a little command set up inside the actual colony, and another cool thing that they use, another tech thing, is they use these motion trackers.
Oh yeah.
Another distinct sound, like the sound.
It's like what are those things called? Submarine kind of thing,
right?
A pinging
sonar type of shit.
Yeah, right.
But just the sound that it makes, even before it detects anything, it's just weird, like thumping sound, like a heartbeat. It stays in your mind after you watch this film. You know what I mean? It's like stuff like that, like those little details help the film, be great. So they finally set up command inside this colony, wherever this is like the main station where people were living. You know what I mean? And they get a blip on the radar on the motion tracker. So then when they go and investigate, they find the little girl. They find out that she's the sole survivor.
The way the scene is shot, it's almost like it's an alien creature. So it's like
it's shot like they're tracking a creature, but it ends up being the little girl. And Ripley goes after her and finds kind of her little hiding place where she's kind of been for the last however long.
Yeah, here's the sound of that little device.
Right.
And it's very cool because it's a very tense sequence because you're led as a viewer to believe that they're gonna find one of these creatures, but you don't know where it's gonna pop out of, and it ends up being Newt. Right. And when Newt kind of she's shell shocked clearly, and she's like she's not good with words. You still don't know how long it's been, so I guess the time difference between them showing up and also them being in the cryo sleep, it kind of shows you the time has passed, and she's I would say she's kind of what do you call those Lord of the Flies kind of kids, but there's no other people to deal with.
Right.
So the first time these guys actually have any conflict with an alien is that they actually go into the labs and they find that they have some of these face huggers in stasis. The face huggers are like these little spider creatures that hug onto your face and impregnate you with the seeding of the alien. So I never knew how that worked out. Like oh, okay, I get it. Is that, you think that's the actual alien's real form, or what's going on with? Because it's like there's two things. There's aliens and then there's face huggers. Because the aliens take the shape of whatever they are impregnated in.
Exactly.
So, but I mean, what the fuck makes a face hugger then?
I don't know. I don't know how the cycle goes. I mean, the queen lays the eggs, which are
right, and those little face huggers come. It's very bizarre. That doesn't make any sense, but it's still whatever.
It's like, where does it start from?
Yeah, the designs are by H.R. I hope is it Giger or Geiger? Yeah, he's a German artist, and he's amazing. So the aliens creatures were actually demons that he designed for the book The Necronomicon,
right?
Which was a takeoff on H.P. Lovecraft's book. But really, obviously, one of the most iconic images, probably one of my favorite alien designs ever. But just in general, alien design, not aliens, but alien design.
That's probably the best ever, and it's fun. For the first film, just to go back for 1 second, is that Ridley Scott, he saw he saw that image in Giger's book, right? And he was like, "Listen, this should be the creature." You know what I mean? And like usual, like the studio, the producers were like, "Okay, we'll take his concept and make it our own," and really say, "I was like, listen, no, you shouldn't make it your own. Just take his concept." So that's his original that's Giger's. That's Giger's. You know what I mean?
It's Giger's design, and it
was not altered in any way for the movie. It was just they just took it and said, "Let's make this the creature," which is great. And for the second one, Giger wasn't involved in this one at all. Cameron kind of took the design of the first one and kind of altered it a bit to make them more insect-like. Because the first one, if anybody remembers watching the movie, the first alien was more kind of upright and stiff. It was kind of, I guess, because it came from a human host. It was more human-like. So this one, he kind of wanted to make it more insect-like. You know what I mean? Where they kind of crawled and jump from wall to wall, whatever.
So.
But again,
Newt is telling that all this shit went down, and a lot more stuff gets picked up on the little radar, and this is when the first conflict that's pretty horrific. What happens?
Well, what happens is the actual colonists had these little, as you can say, like trackers I guess on them in their clothes or something.
Right.
And they actually hone in on the signal, and they see that the colonists are all in one section together. So the Marines think, oh, they're alive. They're probably holding somewhere, trying to survive,
outlast whatever's been attacking them.
So they're like, okay, we know where they are now, so let's go and get them. But what they don't know is that they're actually going into the actual nest, alien's nest. You know what I mean? Which is in another. They drive to another complex away from where they were, and they actually start going through sub-levels down to the colonists who they think are alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
they get a nice surprise.
Right, they end up going into the actual alien's nest.
Yeah.
They find the colonists kind of in, how can you say,
cocooned kind of states against the wall, like.
Right.
But I mean, they're like they're all pretty much dead because their chests are all like ripped apart. And this really stuck with me when I saw this part. It freaked me out, man. Because they find the woman there.
Right.
And first of all, you think she's dead because her head is lax, just lately knocked out. So they go to take a look at her face, and it freaked me out. In the original sequence from the first film was that chest burster come out, and it's a really graphic scene of it. It's not, well, it is sort of it is graphic when the chest burster comes out of her chest and the little alien pops out.
They're like, there's a nuclear reactor around them or something.
Right.
And, they didn't want to set it off with the so that's another device that Cameron used to kind of like build tension. Again, he keep using these like little details. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not letting them use actual bullets that have to go through. You know what I mean?
Right.
Tension. But Vasquez actually doesn't really follow.
No, she's like, fuck it. Fans, six out of the 5 out of the 11 toasted right there. They just killed, and it's just a series. You just see everything just fall apart right there. That's when you see the morale of them just go right down the toilet. Because at the beginning, they're all these gung ho kind of like, oh, whatever, dudes. We can kick some ass. We've done it before. Did they mention that they were dealing with xenomorphs, right? Because xenomorphs, I think, was just a general name of the aliens.
Yeah, it's just a general.
But not this particular set of aliens. Just in general, or
just in general, I think.
So you're given the idea that they've dealt with other types of species before,
exactly.
Past adventure.
And
everything the shit hits the fan, and they,
like you said, Ape Home dies, so that kind of that throws it off even more.
Sarge is dead. Let's get the fuck out. Like,
have no command, so they just basically run. This guy Gorman kind of, he fucking
crumbles under pressure.
And this is where I think the film, two things. The one thing is what Cameron does is that he uses the POV of the cameras.
Yeah.
In very
right. Because they're at the crew inside the tank have they have monitors that are linked to the either shoulder cameras or head.
Shoulder cameras, yeah.
Shoulder cameras that the Marines have.
Yeah.
So they're not seeing what the audience already saw, which is these creatures coming out of the ceiling. You just see these shaky
chaotic
images. It's like almost like the first version of found footage kind of horror film.
Exactly.
It's found footage, but within a film, so it's even more
it's
interesting.
So effective, dude. It
really is, because
wow. So then from there, this is where the film kind of becomes an action, kind of kick-ass action movie, because Ripley, she kind of takes command of. She sees Gorman is scared shitless, and she takes command and she starts driving the APC, and she tries to go and rescue these guys. And this is where the first real big action sequence happens, and
because more importantly, it goes from we're attacking to this thing to it's something that's overwhelming, so we got to get the fuck out of here.
Right. And then Ripley becomes the savior. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the music also kicks in really good here. This is a great score, I think, too. So it all starts kind of really connecting here as an action film.
Because it that's where the line is from science fiction to horror to action film.
Right.
So now they make it out to the wastelands on the outside. First they have to have a little tribunal of what's going on because they're so freaked out about their Sarge dying. And I think the comedy of Hudson's character is that he's so like, he was such a hard ass at the beginning that he just shits his pants.
Yeah, and he's just like, let's just get the fuck out.
Yeah, I know, because I'm pretty sure everybody would relate with this character, I think, in a way. Well, I think generally 80% of the people would fucking be like, yeah, fuck this, I'm out of here.
Go back, exactly.
Because it was funny, because I remember I remember picking up a Mad magazine and reading, they had a parody of Aliens. They drew Hudson throughout the whole story. They drew him as a chicken, so it was just fucking funny. It was just funny to me because it didn't hit me as how much of a chicken shit in the film he becomes. And it's just funny because he has like the best lines, because it's the lines that he has are out of desperation and fear, and he's the comedy of the film, I have to say.
Right.
But it's almost natural comedy because we're laughing at him in a way. You know what I mean?
It's like deadpan. It's just like...
Yeah, it's very deadpan, but still over the top because he's so fucking frightened that it's funny. It's hilarious to see this person who... In any other thing, you'd see anybody who was in this, they'd fucking freak out too. So it's just funny. It's this guy. And of course, the only other level-headed guy there really is... Vasquez is level-headed, but she's kind of like, we want to fucking kill everybody.
Right.
And Hicks
she wants to kill Gorman because he kind of...
chickened out, right.
Fault, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because he was supposed... He didn't tell them to pull out, which would have made sense. And Hicks is more kind of... How would you explain how his role is from then on?
He's sort of he becomes kind of the leader.
De facto leader for them, for the grunts.
Because Ripley's kind of on her own. She's in her own kind of mode. She can kind of take care of herself.
Right.
She's really worried about the little girl, Newt.
Right.
So he kind of becomes the leader and the person of reasoning.
Mm-hmm. He's the only one that basically listens to her.
Right. He's smart.
Uh-huh.
He knows that she knows what she's talking about, and she's smart herself. So
they decide to go out and wait for
and also, this is when we kind of see Burke become the slimy kind of
scumbag
that he is. He kind of just breaks out of it in the first thing he says when they're like, let's just nuke the entire site. And he's like, actually no, I don't want to do that. He wants to kind of save the species or whatever, and then right there we know that this guy is...
Yeah, because at the beginning he promises Ripley, we're going to destroy these creatures. They're just bullshit. So
it's kind of a quick turn if you think about it. Like, it's like too quick almost, but it works though, because there's so much going on, you know what I mean?
But I think if you pay attention to his character enough, he's going to do that, because he just seems like a slimy fuckface anyway. So while they're waiting for the their ship to come pick them up, because they're waiting to just get picked up and get the fuck right out, something bad happens to that crew, so they get attacked by aliens too, because the assholes left the dock. So these guys should have just called them and been like, listen, close everything, there's aliens around here. So one of the co-pilot is running up to the ship and he touches slime on the thing, so already people are asked that.
Great shot.
Yeah, definitely. And they just get fucking creamed. Like the ship goes to land and lands right into a fucking wall, because that's what happens. They both.
And it destroys the APC.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually destroys part of the complex that will come into play later on.
Yeah.
For that scene, it looks so real, bro.
It does. I mean, is that like a movie screen that they put there?
Projection, man.
It is. Yeah, it looks fantastic. It's a phenomenal scene if you look at it.
Up to just a few movies, Cameron was really avid about using rear projection. He used it on Terminator 2. He used it on a lot of movies, man, and he always felt.
But it looks so flawless. It looks like something that a CGI would do, right? So right there, you see they're real desperate. Like Hudson really has just become destabilized.
So they hold up inside the actual main complex, and they decide to kind of barricade themselves in, because Hicks he lets them know that they won't get rescued for another 17 days or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So no one would come looking for them for 17 days. So they basically have to hold themselves up, barricade themselves in, and kind of just any kind of openings or vents or whatever they kind of weld with barricade, and they just try to sit it out and see what happens and wait to get rescued.
Yeah.
That's basically the plan until other stuff happens.
It's not a smart plan, but it's the only plan that they got.
Exactly.
So
then we get into my favorite part of the special edition, which is the sentry guns. I don't know if did you get that far into it?
Not yet. No, I didn't.
Well, okay. There's this whole sequence after the dropship crashes, and they rescue whatever weapons from whatever the wreckage. They find that they have these sentry remote guns, right? Mm-hmm. That they're able to put certain sections of the complex, like let's say corridors where the aliens could come in, and they place these robotic guns that they can control from like a keypad.
Oh, cool.
Which was completely cut out from the theatrical film.
Okay.
But it plays a major part in like building the tension of the middle of the film. Really? Because the aliens attack a few times, whereas in the theatrical they only attack one time.
Oh, I see.
It's the main attack at the end where they like all the shit breaks. You know what I mean? Right. They actually try to attack, and these guns hold them off. But the guns only have a certain amount of ammo, so the guns keep wasting. You know what I mean? They keep
right.
They keep drying out of ammo.
So it's almost like a strategic attempt by the aliens, like to cut down sacrificing their troops to have them waste ammo and more open to attack.
And it's a great part of the movie, and I'm glad it's back in there. Yeah. But that's my favorite part of the whole entire special edition. I mean, that should have been in the movie because it just makes the movie better. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So that's basically where we're at right now. Is they plant these guns and they're waiting it out.
So why do you think they cut that out? Just for pacing reasons?
I think it was pacing. I think it was time. I think the movie it's already like 2 hours and 15 minutes, and for back then, an action horror movie, whatever you want to call it, to be more than 2 hours was kind of like, you know what I mean? Yes. Nowadays,
it's 90 minutes straight up now. Oh, but I mean, films like that, like Cameron demands 2 hours and 30 minutes.
Yeah, but nowadays, if it's fucking Transformers is like 3 hours and shit.
Yeah, pretty much. Because I mean, with the price of movie tickets now, you fucking better have Batman sit on your lap while you're watching the movie.
Exactly.
And shit. So it all leads to all these aspects of these characters kind of dealing with this. That obviously that sequence was obviously not in the theatrical cut, but then these characters are more interesting. They're getting to know a little bit about each other, but you're also seeing them go through this kind of situation together, and that's when Burke shows his true color in the film.
Right.
And what Burke ends up doing after a whole bunch of exposition with characters talking to each other and how
they're trying to learn about the alien too.
Right. They're trying to show each other they're trying to show Ripley weaponry, how the guns work, so she doesn't magically know how to shoot guns in the film. The guy Hicks teaches her, and then they're all trying to learn about the scientific qualities of the alien itself.
Right.
And what ends up happening is that Burke tries to trap Ripley in a room with Newt, with an alien.
Right. So his main what he really wants to do is take this alien
sample back.
He wants to take it back, and
they almost want to weaponize the alien.
Right.
Which is what they ended up using that idea in, I think, Aliens vs. Predators. I didn't even bother watching, so I don't know.
Which is probably horrible.
So
and that's like the main theme of all the movies. Even the first one that's what the company always wanted.
Yeah, I always liked that about films with faceless corporations. You know what I mean? It's kind of like cool. It's kind of like is it OCP in RoboCop, or is it
right?
Those guys. There's always this big faceless corporation that's always the bad. It's the easiest villain in a film is the faceless corporation.
You really have to.
You don't have to go into their the only reason that they do that is for money. Always, all the time. It's always money. That's all it is. So Weyland-Yutani is obviously money.
They want money, and they want weapon. They want control of this weapon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and obviously they have a stronghold in the world as is because they got fucking floating space stations and shit.
Exactly.
So it's a very old kind of idea, but it still works pretty much. If you use it correctly, it always works. And from there, they catch on to Burke's plan, and they almost fucking kill him right there. But then they decide that from that point on, after that sequence, this is when it just starts heading right to it. Fast forwards almost right to the ending of the film. Like it just goes right into this final battle.
I think this is the thing that makes this stand out for me as a film, and I haven't seen it in a film since.
And what's that?
Until Inception. I'm gonna bring Inception into this because they really don't make movies like this anymore. Like the last half of this movie, it builds and it never really stops until the final 2 minutes of the film. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And I feel Inception was the exact same.
Well, yeah, Inception. The whole film was like that for the first.
Right.
After
until
the first
the
half
point
an
where they
hour.
get into the first dream. I mean, the dream where they're trying to plant the main idea. From then on, it's like the film never lets up.
Right, it's just constant
roller coaster, and I've never seen that in a film other than Inception recently. So it took 30 years or whatever.
Yeah.
But when you first watch them, if you're watching the movie for the first time, you kind of you don't feel satisfied at the end. You feel almost drained in a way. And I remember that's how I felt when I first saw the movie. It was just so fucking. I was just in a good way, obviously.
Right.
But I just felt like I've never experienced something like that. You know what I mean? Action like that. So from this point on, from the point where Burke tries to get the face hugger, you know what I mean, to I guess impregnate her or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
The Newt and Ripley, which is another great sequence. The whole face hugger sequence where they're trapped in there. So the Marines come and rescue them, and then basically the aliens cut the power off.
Yeah.
And then, boom.
That's when shadows come into play, most likely how the first film. But there's a lot more of them than just one, and it's a good kind of nod to the original. That shadows played a lot. I mean, shadows played throughout the whole film.
Right.
And what eventually happens is a huge giant bug hunt, and basically every character is killed off except for Ripley and Hicks and Bishop and Newt. So, but Hicks is wounded, so you expect the guy to be the one that's kind of kicking everybody's ass, and he's the main military guy. But now it's all left into Ripley's hands. So once again, Ripley is given the reins as the protagonist here again, and in a certain sequence, then Newt is kidnapped by one of the aliens.
Right. She's taken.
Taken. I don't say kidnapped. Yeah, taken.
She's taken by one of the aliens, so that gives Ripley a reason not to leave, because Bishop ends up. They end up forming another plan. I think we forgot about this actually. They could end up staying there in the actual complex until they get rescued, but because of the crash, I think it like short circuited like the nuclear reactor of the whole complex. So now it's gonna explode. It's gonna.
So yeah, it's just really fucking. It really stacks the deck against everybody.
Exactly. So now they can't stay there anymore. So now they have to.
So it forces their hand. It's really awesome.
Right. So I think they form another plan where Bishop, who is the only one, in another great scene where fucking, I don't know if you have that, where Hudson kind of says, he's like, he doesn't want anything to do with the plan. You know what I mean? And he's like. And once Bishop says, I'll do it, he's like, yeah, you should do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do actually remember that. He's like, yeah, man.
To me, that's the best line, bro. And he's like, yeah, Bishop should do it. So, yeah, so they're talking, they're trying to discuss what to do. And Ripley's basically comes up with a plan of going to a communication part center, like a tower, and linking up to their ship, which is still floating, and bringing down another drop ship to pick them up. And the only person who can do this is Bishop, since he's he's the only one capable.
Let's see.
He's an android.
So
that's the best, bro. That's the best.
It's pretty funny, but I think he's crawling through a tube, right?
Right.
And I don't know. You don't know.
That's
I think I did actually see this in the theater, because that filled me with such a weird dread that he had to climb through this. I don't know how. It was a long fucking tunnel, right?
And it's so fucking narrow, bro.
It is. It's so narrow. I was just looking at it. It just gave me the heebie-jeebies when he's crawling through it. I was like, oh,
that's crazy, bro.
So now these all the mains are getting picked off left and right, and like we said before, everybody gets killed except for most of all the Marines get killed except for Hicks, and Hicks is the only Marine that's left, right? And Hudson gets an awesome death because he redeems himself. Vasquez gets a pretty badass death, although she has to share it with this guy, Gorman.
Yeah.
But it's still cool. So what happens is Acid somehow gets on Hicks because he attacked one of the aliens. So he becomes the weak one. He's the one that has to be attended to. So they finally make it to a ship to get the fuck out of there. But with this nuclear reactor coming down, the fucking Queen comes out because they found a way to save Newt from this big pile of shit.
Ripley decides not, she can't leave, that she has to go back.
Right.
And go to the original nest where they first encountered.
And that alien Queen reveal is fucking amazing.
Because she believes that she's still alive, you know what I mean?
Right.
So she kind of gears up. And while this is happening, so she gears up, she gets her weapons ready, and she can only go alone. Bishop stays with the ship. She goes down to the level where they first encountered the aliens, and there's also a countdown happening because the reactor's going to explode.
Yeah.
This is another nod to the first Alien, which again Cameron, which I really I admire him for that, for using elements that worked in the first one to this one and carry it over, and it makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That there's a countdown going on where a woman's like some mothership voice, you know what I mean? It's
I love that. That's such a great old school kind of thing.
Right.
It just works all the time.
And the first one had that, and it just builds more tension again because you know that this shit is gonna blow up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she goes back down. And Newt actually has a tracking watch on her that Hicks actually gave Ripley, and Ripley gave Newt.
Right.
So that's how she can find where she is, and she tracks her, and she finds her kind of cocooned, but she hasn't been whatever, impregnated or whatever the fuck. And she kind of takes her out, and they end up. It's the whole environment is so unstable because it's about to explode. That they end up kind of mistakenly going into the Queen's nest.
Yep.
And they're they arrive standing before hundreds of eggs, and
right.
and then of course, like you said, the reveal of the Queen. It's one of the best fucking.
Because it's done mostly all in silhouette, and then you just see this thing come out. You're like, what the? It's 20 times the size of the alien, of a normal 50 times the size actually, because it's gigantic.
Yeah, it's huge, and this is what makes the film stand out for Cameron. Like, this is his film because of the Queen.
Yeah, because
like,
now the aliens have a final boss. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's
like if the film was just like the aliens, it would have just been a retread of the first. You know?
Yeah, and it's kind of like now it forced the other films to kind of have to incorporate the Queen in some fucking form. Like, they didn't do it in part 3 because they wanted to bring it back to basics. I guess they wanted to take it in another direction.
Right.
But there's always now some sort of weird final boss version of this alien in every movie. Like the third one is the dog alien, and the fourth one is the half human, half whatever one.
Right.
And Aliens vs. Predator is a fucking half predator alien. Whatever the fuck they were thinking of that shit. And it's like this put the pattern of, he put a face to, I mean, the alien itself is the villain, but since there were so many of them, you can't signify one as being the one that's going to attack you. You know what I mean? They're all going to attack you. But if you put one that's even more menacing than the rest of them, and it's almost like Lovecraftian in a way. It's this creature that's so enormous that you can't contemplate the size of it. It's like a fucking King Kong version of an alien. So
Exactly.
and plus it's just huge, and it's the mother, and you always look at the mother as the matriarchal kind of thing that will protect her young. And since Ripley's busy burning the fucking eggs, they're gonna have an extra fucking kick her ass.
Right.
So it's really cool. It's it's the mother lion, helping the cubs kind of thing. So it all leads to this big final conflict, and I believe they're on the ship leaves already the planet, right? And the planet pretty much gets nuclear meltdown. Or is that
pretty much? So she ends up getting out of there. And the Queen kind of like goes after her.
Yeah.
And they end up going to like the platform. They reach the platform where the ship was, and she finds that it's gone. So in a way, it's like, oh fuck, Bishop was a fucking, you know what I mean? He was evil or something. Right. That's what they're kind of trying to say with the ending of the film. But then somehow the Queen makes it up to the platform through that.
Yeah, it's a great fake out because you're thinking that
he screwed him over.
Right.
But he ends up coming back. Bishop kind of shows up at the ship, and they get in, and he kind of crashes, bumps into the platform a bit, and he kind of, it's really coming down to the clock. It's like 10 seconds before this thing is going to explode. The entire planet, you know what I mean? Not the entire planet, but it's like a nuclear.
Nuclear fucking fuck everything.
So they get out in the nick of time, and they go back to the original spaceship, the Marine spaceship. And then,
it gives you this false sense of that they made it out okay
right.
and everything. And
the false ending.
That's when the false ending, because you're like, okay,
which is again ahead of its time.
Yeah, for sure.
It was one of the first of its kind.
Definitely.
It's done in every movie now.
So what ends up happening is now that they're on this ship, safe to get out, but now they're even more in cramp because now this giant creature's in with them, and the creature starts to attack all of them, and it rips apart. Like we said before, it rips apart Bishop in probably one of the most still disgusting scenes ever seen in a fucking. And it goes to attack Newt, and that's when it leads to probably one of the more iconic lines. That leads to the final battle, and it's pretty awesome. It's a Rock'em Sock'em Robot kind of finale because they kick the shit out of each other, and they do it well. And you know what I mean? They do it really good. And
it's total. It's like a total. I mean, I'm not really into comic books that much,
right?
But it feels like that.
Yeah, definitely. It's just straight up. It's straight up action comic book kind of like confrontation.
I've never seen a versus battle like that since. You know what I mean? Everything.
Right. Yeah.
Now it's done so much with CGI. That was just all like done on set, and that's models, and it just so well, and it's
just clever editing, and they knew how to they just knew how to do their shit better. They weren't lazy like nowadays.
And of course,
I guess CGI is cheaper to do, but it just doesn't have the same feeling, you know.
But he brings back the power loader from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of forget about it.
Yeah.
When she kind of leaves, and when she comes back, and we realize, oh shit, that's from the beginning of the film. That's another trick. It's really smart of Cameron to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. It's great foreshadowing, like we said before. So what ends up happening is that there's a big battle at the end, and they make it out, and end of story. The four principles that are left actually still survive towards the end. Even Bishop, who's torn apart,
Right.
and they lead to greater skies. They put themselves to a still uneasy ending because you still see that one of the final shots is Ripley trying to fall asleep, but it's more of a tender, happier ending, and you see the both of them in sleep, and it fades out into black, like mother and daughter kind of, which they totally fuck up in Alien 3, but whatever. And so this type of film, what kind of the whole shebang? What did you get out of it? What did you feel from it when you saw it?
I mean, again, like I said, when I first saw it, I was really more frightened and kind of scarred from it.
Right.
But I think later on, not too far from that, I appreciated it. I loved it for just as a kid, just loving it for the action, for the weapons, for you know what I mean. But then as I got older, I realized that this film kind of has every single element to make it a great movie. It has everything in it. It has comedy, it has drama, it has scares, it has action, and it's to me it's a perfect film in the fact that I can watch it anytime. And there's nothing in it that I would change. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. It's perfect the way it is.
And it still holds up.
Definitely, the characters are all great.
To me, it's a perfect film. It's a film that I get enjoyment every single time.
And it's worth rewatching all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And
the extras only add to it. That's what's so great about it. So Cameron knew what he was doing when he made this film. He made his own animal out of this kind of franchise he was handed. So
right.
For that you got to give a guy props for making it his own stamp on it, because a lot of people could just fucked up in the first movie.
Exactly.
With keeping the ideas of the first one, but expanding on them and putting it into its own genre, as opposed to just being something else. But I think that's good. You have any other things that you want to talk about?
From Aliens?
Yeah, I know you have a lot. Go ahead.
No, just again, it was this was also one of the first films to be. Sigourney Weaver was nominated for Best Actress for an Oscar for this film,
and that was like one of the first kinds for a science fiction film.
Science fiction was really. You can see how it broke that barrier. Like it wasn't just a horror film. It had so much more. It was like it had everything. You know what I mean? It had drama. It had human characters. So it's like that's why when anybody really knocks Cameron in any way, he has too much behind him to kind of fucking, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's proved his shit.
He's proved himself as a writer, as a director. He may not, write the best fucking dialogue, but he has though in certain films.
No, of course,
Depends on what films he and he's come up with some of the most iconic lines. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The only thing that I ever had a problem was the gun scene in True Lies, but I know that was done for comedy when it fell down the stairs and shot everybody.
Yeah,
that's what.
But even that was like it's done well because
it is. It's funny.
For comedic, come on, that's a perfect thing.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like his movies are, especially his older films. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm talking pre-Avatar.
Yeah.
Avatar's done in a completely different time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This stands out probably as one of his best films. That when everything came together. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Every aspect of it, even music. Everything about it came together. So,
it's basically its own masterpiece. It's great. It's fucking great.
Exactly.
So we're gonna go. Oh, thanks for listening.